West African states are also trying to fail to recognize that when there is a coup d'etat, it is not only about the fact that there is an unconstitutional attempt to change government, but there are also other unconstitutional changes in government which point in the face of African leaders that there is a problem with maladministration, there's a problem with corruption, there's a problem with bad governance. Because when you look at the Lome Declaration on unconstitutional changes in government, it talks about coup d'etat, yes. It also talks about changing government through mercenary activity. It talks about changing government through civil war or coup d'etat. These are where, you can say, violence is involved. And these are where governments come to power through unconstitutional means. But there are two more. The fourth one is where a government refuses to leave office after losing elections and therefore fighting for power sharing and what have you. The other is where a government decides to change the constitution or to doctor it in order to stay in power beyond the normal 2-year term limit. And that's what we call third termism. These are the two factors which remain, as Professor Eni was referring to, if you look at the Mo Ibrahim indices, if you look at Afrobarometer and so on, are issues that are occurring and which is creating that illiberal democratic environment in many African countries. We are sliding on the democracy scale. And that is scary because it connects to the Afrobarometer survey, which says that majority of people are willing to accept military takeovers. And this is about 56%. And the majority of these 56% are youth. So if you factor in the general democratic environment the world over, if you look at Europe, you will see far-right parties coming to power in countries that a few years ago nobody would have imagined or envisioned that a far-right party would come to power or be a kingmaker in the politics of those countries. Nationalism and patriotism or populism are also influencing the dynamics in the African context. And so I strongly agree with Professor Eni that the environment is changing in such a way that you cannot guarantee democracy at this moment. And then more coup d'etat may occur. And now in Niger, the West has come to realize that if we say that we are just abandoning Niger, then we are allowing Wagner to come in and take over. And in fact, it's true, U.S. has pumped a lot of money in terms of security in Niger. And so they want to protect that interest. But rightly so, China is also in Niger. They also have their interest to protect. So the geopolitics is reaping its ugly head very fast, especially in West Africa. And we need to be therefore very careful about how we tackle this issue. It is not to make a rash decision and say that we're going to Niger to overthrow the government and restore democracy. It is easier said than done. But I think African leaders would want to pander to the interests of the West and say that this is what we support this idea. We want to go in there and make a statement. If you look at the whole of changeover landscape in Africa, it is only Sierra Leone through ECOMOG and Comoros some time back that there have been military successful attempts to change government and to return the overthrown government to power through after a coup d'etat. So it is important to look at the dynamics and to adopt a more pragmatic approach that can find a solution to this coup d'etat issue which is coming up. And I can tell you more may come if we don't sit up and realize that unconstitutional change in government is not just about coming to power through unconstitutional means, but trying to stay in power and trying to foment divisional interests and so on in order to maintain power and rely on corrupt governance to stay in power. That is another recipe for more coup d'etat to come.